Look, what do you see? I see a large tongue, a sign that in clinical medicine we call macroglossia. Is this a signal? Well, if have sufficient experience and knowledge, and I see such a sign, I may say this is a signal of this, that, or the other. Signs must be objective, signals are hypothetical, are just propositions. This is exactly the goal of our presentations, which in general we call medical terminology illuminations, clinical sense and sensitivity. We emphasize English medical terminology as well as medical humanities expressed in English, which helps with the understanding of English in general and medical ethics in particular. The approach is that we present clinical visual signs concurrently with vocabulary, both spoken and written. We focus on signals, in other words, the understanding of signs, so that helps memorization as well as introduces the science of semiology, the study of signs, their synthesis into syndromes, and proposition of diagnosis. The field that we emphasize is this morphology because it is the richest in this perspective, but I must put a caveat, a warning. Our contents in all of our websites are insufficient to sustain fully attempts to produce a diagnosis or to generate management approaches. For such a purpose, that is diagnosis and management, we urge viewers to consult other sources of information. Our illumination of macroglossia as a sign, a signal, a syndrome, a potential mechanism of pathogenesis and diagnosis starts with this beautiful classic painting by Jordaens, over 500 years old. Artists are great observers. Now, what do you see? Obviously, you already are primed to see this macroglossia, but what else do you see? Well, what I see is that this child is obese. How do I know that? Because I see these folds of adipose tissue. And in this panel, you could see that macroglossia is not such an exotic, rare science, and that its signals can be very complex. Collectively, this is called casuistics, the study of clinical observations. And these include, in this particular presentation, in its full version, because this is just a trailer, of practical videos. So what are the signals that this diversity of patients can convey to you? For instance, this is a high cancer risk syndrome. This has to do with environmental lack of one micronutrient. This one has to do with a deficit of one organelle in the cells of this baby. This one appears gradually. This is a storage disease. This is an autosomal recessive mutation that gradually creates a deficit, biochemical deficit, and then the body piles up incompletely burned or metabolized substances, and they are preferentially stored in the tongue. These are just examples of many others presented in the full version. Macroglossia also led to open brand new, very complex notions of epigenetics. The clinicians identified this high cancer risk syndrome that eventually led to the discovery of the location of the chromosome that is altered. This is the short arm of chromosome 11 in the area of 15.1 position. The study of nosology, that is all the clinical observations, led to a very clearly defined syndrome of not only macroglossia but gigantism, macrosomia, the presence of embryonal tumors, of hemihyperplasia, and of course some rare signs otherwise but common in this syndrome, such as ear pits and so forth. But eventually, cytogenetics led to molecular genetics to epigenetics, and in brief, loss and gain of function understanding. That is not mutation of the gene, but that the gene doesn't work enough or it works too much. It works too much or doesn't work enough. These appear to be distinct syndromes, but in fact, one is opposite of the other. This is loss of function, this is gain of function. And these are examples of epigenetics that are at the cutting edge of science today. So in summary, as we present these casuistics and observations of combinations of different signs and then interpretation of signals, we come across a very rich terminology, some of which is listed here. And this illustrates how we meet our goal of presenting visual and verbal and written materials for the memorization and better grasp of future clinicians and healthcare providers. It is also useful to know for viewers that all the facts we present are generally extracted from these two websites, so that if you want to find the basis of what you have been watching, then you could find where these ideas in medical and English terminology arise from. This is the main website. Now I'd like to thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed viewing our presentation. I also invite you to see the contents of our teratology dysmorphology website and other websites dedicated to the presentation of word roots and medical terminology and others to clinical eye-openers, galleries, and videos. Until your next visit, which I hope will be soon. And now it's time for me to extend to you my best wishes and say goodbye.